What's up, everybody? The Wolf Pack is back with another podcast, and I have to tell you, it took us 3 podcasts to hit our stride. So all of you that are still with us, we probably alienated a bunch of people, but this one really is our best podcast. So please check it out. And the fact that you actually made it this far, you are a real champion and really want to learn something, I guess. Or see us fail. But I think this is one of the best ones we've done. So please listen to it. Few things you need to know is that Tim says the word sexy 8 times. That's pretty awesome podcast. I think it's really 8 times probably in the first 10 or 15 minutes. So there is some other things you need to hang on for. The next question we address is what keeps us up at night? What are the things that we're dealing with? A lot of people think on the surface, a lot of these guys have it all figured out, but what is keeping them up at night? And then we get really in the deep end. We talk about leading and navigating our teams, our clients, our residents through this unprecedented time in terms of race in our country and unprecedented times in terms of the COVID pandemic. I tell you, this is some really good information and absolutely worth it. We talk about it for about 30 minutes. So really important. And then the last thing, we finish off with books we're reading. So I hope you enjoy it. The Pack is back with podcast number 4. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to volume 4 of the Wolf Pack podcast. I've got the Wolf Pack back here. And today, one of the things we just talked about off air is Vince got a couple of books. So we're going to get started with that. We often trade books. I've got a really nice gift that y'all sent me on my desk. I think it was Mikey sent this to me when y'all were here last time. But I'll show that in a second, but Vince, you want to share the books that the guy sent?
Yeah, so got this one right here from Tim called "Rules for My Unborn Son."
That's the sentimental version of the gifts here. Try to get through that without crying. You can't.
Yeah, so I, as I had mentioned on my last podcast we're any day now. So June 10th, our son's going to be here, so he could pop out anytime now, and then.
That's not an excuse, though, to miss the Wolfpack podcast. I mean, if you have to come live from the hospital, that's okay.
All right. I literally may have to do that. And then I got this one. And I was just hunting for who gave this to me because I received it. And I found the culprit.
For those of you listening, it says, "My Boys Can Swim, the official guy's guide to pregnancy." Your wife got a little offended when she opened that?
No, she didn't. She just said, "Who sent you this?" And I had no idea. But
you're like my boy who sent me the wolf shirt.
I appreciate that, Tim and Mike. That's I'll let you guys know how it goes. I've already started to read Tim's. I haven't got into the official guide to pregnancy.
It's a quick read. I would recommend with like 2 glasses of whiskey. And then you read.
There you go.
I mean, I remember I was flying at the time. I was flying back and forth from Philly to Orlando, and my wife was pregnant. Obviously, that's why you read the book. And it was suggested to me. I read it. I've now passed it on to like literally everybody in my family and everybody who I meet that like is having. It's so funny, man. Like I had like 2 or 3 Jack and Cokes on the plane, flying back and reading that, and I'm literally in tears, crying on the plane. All by myself, just reading this book. It's so good. You're going to enjoy it.
I have to say, I think like gifting books is one of the best gifts to do to people. Like, I think it is such a good gift. I mean,
yeah.
So, thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Duke used to give T-shirts at every staff meeting. I thought that was a pretty good gift, but he would always get them too small for me. He forgets I'm a little husky, and so I can't wear them.
One time, you shared an office with Gabe and Liz, and I got them shirts that said "Tim farted."
That's right. That is true.
And they were purple.
That's true. Because he was choking them out.
So this was something that they sent. The guy sent me. For those of you who can't see, it's a what do you call this? A nameplate that goes on your desk that says Matthew fucking Whitaker, founder. Can you, Mike, will you tell us why you sent that? I also got a t-shirt. That must've been Duke. You sent you and Tim sent the t-shirt.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was a collaborative effort. So we actually came to Birmingham, and we all met with Matthew at his corporate office, and we did like our 2-day kind of little mastermind retreat thing. And collectively, kind of as a group, we felt like Matthew had kind of lost his mojo. And
I was sucking my thumb a little bit at the meeting.
He was kind of licking his wounds, and the company was up and down at the time, and he just lost 1 or 2 of his guys and key guys, and he was just kind of down.
He was going through no man's land. I just wanted to say that.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah.
Don't read the book unless you want to be depressed for a whole year.
So we just felt like we needed to help him get back his mojo. And if you look at a sign on your desk or a T-shirt that you got that says "I'm Matthew effing Whitaker," it's a little tough to forget, where you came from and who you are. So, and you deserve it, dude. You're a stud, and we appreciate everything you brought to us and your leadership. So, just wanted to remind you who you were, buddy.
Yeah, that was awesome. So really quick, funny story. My son, who's 9 years old, saw it on my desk, and he said he didn't say anything until we got home, and he goes, "Dad, I saw the inappropriate word on your desk."
That's pretty good.
I was like,
yeah, and
I explained the story to him.
They never say it in front of you. They wait till they're in front of mom, and then they bring it up.
Yeah, exactly.
They start picking that up early. Like Avia is just starting to repeat words, and I was like, the other day she said shit, and now she's just like repeating it over and over. I'm like, you're not even 2 years old yet.
Yeah, they pick up those bad words. Like it sticks way faster than than all the good words.
So fast. My wife made a dinner one time that I wasn't enjoying, so I went to make a sandwich, and kind of silently, and she asked me what I was doing. I was like, I'm making a goddamn sandwich. 2 days later, without any hesitation, my 3-year-old says, "Dad, I'm eating a goddamn sandwich." It was great. It was great. He's hilarious.
That's great.
So I'll say I've only gotten two gifts from this group. One was sitting right here is the picture of everybody except Vinny. And then the other one was just, it was that Matthew got it for me. It was a...
well, you're acting like it wasn't that great.
Spiral notebook. No, it was hilarious.
No, it was perfect for you, though. I mean, it was a list of people you want to punch in the face, a notebook.
List of people I want to punch in the face. I filled it all. It was like 17 pages of note paper. I filled it all out that day. It was done. It was done. I had to get rid of it because every day I would go back to it and be like, there's no room to write this new person that I met that I want to hit.
It's like list of, it's like from, what was it, Billy Madison?
Billy Madison, where he's like crossing them off. Yeah.
Glad I called back.
So I want to jump into some property management stuff. I would be interested to know, and maybe I ought to do a short intro as I talk, but Mike, biggest issue you're dealing with in your property management company, Mike, is from Atrium Property Management in Orlando, Florida. So Mike, what is the biggest issue that's keeping you up at night? And also explain what you're doing, how you're handling it.
It's a great question. I wish you would have called me last, but no, I would say the biggest issue we're dealing with right now is kind of like time management across the board. We're a couple years behind you guys, and you guys have given us some great advice. So we're in the process of nailing down everybody's processes, and we're in early stages of that. So recently we built out the process completely for how a Meld should work from start to finish. And each of our teams was doing that, and they were each doing it, slightly differently. So our biggest challenge is really right now just making sure that all of our processes match across the board. So as we continue to grow, it's very simple to tell a new person how to do their job. And it probably sounds a little generic. It's very property management oriented. With all the problems we got going in our world right now, it seems like there should be bigger problems, but that's really the biggest thing that we're focusing on right now.
Yeah, that's good. I think it's important for people to know that we deal with problems too. I mean, we have, we've built some companies that are of some size, but I mean, there are fires raging at GK houses right now. Tim, tell us, Dodson Property Management. What's your biggest issue in Dodson Property Management world?
Can I do a classic Tim thing and answer with 2 answers?
Yeah, please.
Okay. First thing, always first and foremost, is people. That's what I always go back to. That's what keeps me up at night. We've got a couple people issues right now that we're dealing with, and it's not good timing. I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that we've seen kind of this ebb and flow with motivation, and I think that has a lot to do with the sort of people that we hire and the kind of culture that we built. I mean, we've talked about this before. Being out of the office and missing a lot of that camaraderie is probably not, some of the people that might have lasted 3-4 years are not lasting as long because they don't have that aspect of it. So we're really trying to attack those head on, put performance plans in place, have daily conversations with those people, and if it's not the right fit, try to move on.
Well, let me ask some questions about, because we're dealing with some issues. What do you think? One of the things we've identified is we've done a poor job of making it clear what a win is in that position. And, I'd be curious, what are you identifying as because it's not just motivation. It's not the fact that they're sitting at home. At some point, they don't feel like they're winning. So what have you identified as kind of the plan to fix that?
I haven't, and I now will go away from this podcast. The winning piece of it. No, it comes down to that, really. It's really, our maintenance coordinator position that we're having a tough time with. People aren't enjoying that aspect of it. So we're trying, instead of thinking about it from a win perspective, which I like a lot better, and so I'm going to go back and analyze that. We're trying to tweak the responsibilities. We're looking at hiring a VA to try to handle a lot of the daily coordination and some of the bullshit that goes on with that position that's not that fun, so to speak. And we're trying to motivate our people by, hey, you're going to go be out in the field more once this COVID stuff stops. You're going to be managing one of the maintenance techs a little bit more and have more direct kind of impact on weekly and daily revenue. So maybe that is a win from your perspective. I don't know, but I like that win piece.
One of the interesting things, even what Mike was talking about, creating these process, like a Meld from start to finish. Property Meld is what Mike's talking about. It's a vendor that provides maintenance software to our industry. And I was actually just on a call with Ray. But one of the things I've thought is sometimes building the processes first doesn't get you the right goal. And instead of, if you could tell somebody what a win looks like, sometimes they can will themselves, throwing processes be damned, they can will themselves to the goal, and then you can create processes that make it easier and more efficient on the back end. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's what we're dealing with right now. Like GK Houses, as we've grown, all our processes, we're starting to outgrow our processes. And so we spend a lot of time coming back and trying to recreate these processes. But at the end of the day, if we haven't identified what the ultimate goal is for our individual team members and how they know if they're winning or not, then they're just running the processes and they're saying, well, I'm doing my job, I'm running the process, but it's not manifesting itself in the win.
I know.
Do you find that win, because we have metrics and we have stuff that we talk about weekly, we kind of try to celebrate those things. Surveys obviously is a big thing, turnaround time on doing regular work orders, and then what we call a 5-star move-in. So there are wins there, but I don't feel like those are sexy. Do you constantly think about that in terms of sexy wins, or is it just metrics and goals? To me, I just don't.
There's not a lot of sexy in property management.
That's kind of that's kind of how I feel.
Other than the 5 guys sitting here, I don't know of any other sexy.
Especially in the maintenance world, tough to.
Yeah.
I was gonna say leases are sexy, lease ups are sexy, new business is sexy. So I think it might just be that maintenance side of things that needs to be sexied up a little bit.
I'll let Vince to chime in. If any of this is proprietary, tell me to shut up. But I think one thing I was impressed when we visited mine was you guys are measuring everything, right? Like most of us all of us, the four of us, have come up in this like small business world, and we're growing and trying to add sophistication. But you guys are coming at it with big money, which comes with smart people, comes with technology, comes with measuring everything. And have you guys found any success measuring the stuff that we're blabbering about? It seemed like you guys are when we came to visit. Again, if it's proprietary, tell me to shut up.
Yeah, no, we're happy to share it. So like we've rolled out a kind of a almost a P&L for each region. So our portfolio managers are compensated on the margins that portfolio produces. And so our hub, our central hub, provides our portfolio managers resources. And at the end of the day, that's a cost to the region. So the more that they use from the hub, the more it impacts their region. But the portfolio managers now, because we have visibility into how the metrics they're operating in each market, and they get bonused based on a certain margin profile, and it's a pretty significant bonus. Now they're coming to us. They want to grow the portfolio now. So we're seeing portfolio managers who never wanted to, they didn't want their portfolio to get larger because it created more work. Well, now that growth increases their margins, which puts more money in their pocket. They're pushing back on things that we're providing them as a resource, like accounting services and other things, that now they see the visibility in their dashboard. And it's not overly complicated, where they could look in and they're like, why am I being billed X amount for this service? Like, we didn't use that this month. So it's created kind of this gamification internally, a healthy competition internally, that at the end of the day, it makes everyone, more productive.
Yeah, it holds everybody accountable. We've been doing that too, running separate P&Ls, and we pay our team leaders based on, profitability in the market. And we're kind of rethinking some of that now, but because you don't want them just focused on profitability at the sacrifice of growth. I'd be interested to know how you think about that. I mean, how do you think of it? Because I can run a very efficient market that won't grow, but I can also grow and not be profitable. So how do you think about the yin and yang of that?
So it's also, the customer service aspect of it. So it has to be measured on multiple fronts. So you have to measure the CSAT for each region. So
the CSAT, what is that?
The customer satisfaction score.
Okay.
So
look, we're not in Silicon Valley. I'm in Alabama. A CSAT sounds like something that would revive me when my heart stops.
Yeah. Fancy tech words.
Yeah.
Just a rating. So like if a region is growing like crazy and their margins are good in 1 month, but the customer like the owners aren't happy with the service, they're not going to get their bonus. So we measure them on multiple fronts to ensure that there's not that slippage. But to your point, it is kind of a fine balance, and we don't. I mean, it's a work in progress for us as well, right? So we just rolled this out, and we're kind of refining as we go.
I got a question for you, Vinny. Is there one of those stats that like is surprising, or that is something that all of us probably don't track that is super helpful for you guys?
Not that I could think of. I'd have to loop in our Ollie or Ian on that one, because they're living and breathing this every day.
Yeah.
I'm kind of looking at it more macro. So not that I could think of off the top of my head.
Customer satisfaction and income or profit. Those are the two things that they are really focused on. I like it.
Well, one thing they were doing that was really interesting, is that they are measuring all their VAs, all their people, their remote workers. They're measuring literally like how many minutes it takes to do every task, which is pretty interesting. Whereas we're kind of doing that, on a spreadsheet, we see how many tickets you closed out, and maybe it's the same thing, but you can see if Joe is averaging 6 minutes per ticket and Susie's averaging 12 minutes per ticket, for example, and you see that charted almost instantly. You're measuring it, everything instantly and reporting it instantly. It's got to have an impact. Like, I would assume that your maintenance VAs are more efficient than ours, I would assume, because of that level of scrutiny and that level of detail. You think that's true?
Yeah. And we're getting better too. I think part of our initiative this year is doubling down on our tech. So we've been so hyper-focused on growth. Granted, we've been building a lot of technology as well, but now we're we're doubling down on initiatives like this, more sophisticated algorithms to help us make better decision making internally and externally.
Mm-hmm.
Timmy, you said there were two things. We got off on a rabbit trail there. What was your
Sorry.
second?
It was a good rabbit hole.
Oh, I think people would have learned a lot. I
Yeah.
learned a lot.
I did too. Yeah. I was taking notes and reading some interesting news. I don't know if Duke just saw some of the Richmond news. We just got texted.
I did.
That's interesting. But the second thing, we switched to Appfolio Plus, and we are building out our workflows in there. And that is keeping me up at night, in the morning, at midday, in evening.
Well, we're glad it's keeping you up at midday, and
it's
you're not
keeping
getting
me-
your siesta.
I am no longer.
Talk
without
about
being
that.
able to
So
talk. Yeah.
they approached us a year or two ago, and we just didn't think that all the bells and whistles were there for the increase in cost. Talk a little bit about the workflows. How long ago did y'all switch?
Right after PMMCon, which was in
Late February, so early March.
Yeah, early March, I believe.
So we're 3 months in.
We're 3 months in. We turned it on a little early because we were taking on a couple multifamily properties that the timing, we had to turn it on earlier. I would really have liked to start it honestly now. But so we're into it. We're rolling. The first thing we wanted to tackle was the workflows, because I think that's the most important piece to get the most value out of it for us across all business lines. And it's just kind of slow moving. It's a slog trying to get people, we got a lot going on. We got people working from home, and it's just a slog to try to get this delegated and out there and moving along. So
let's talk about that, because, this is one of the things with growing companies is a challenge, right? Because all your resources are always going to execution of, the product. And now all of a sudden you've got this kind of work on the business, this laundry list of, and Mike talked about it too, you focus on writing processes. How are you thinking about that? And how are y'all like divvying up the workload?
Yeah, so it is. I mean, especially for Dodson Property Management. I mean, we've been trying to get leaner over the last couple of years, and we've done a really good job at that. So it's not that we've been cutting staff, but it's maybe hiring VAs where we might have an in-person, maybe not backfilling. So we got as lean as we could to execute efficiently, right? And that's been good. But then when you get a big project like this, you got to get a little bit creative. The second part of your question, how are we looking at it? I mean, we're going division by division or department by department as we talk about at Dodson, and you're responsible for building your own workflows in there. And I'm encouraging all my staff I built out the Trello board to try to get us all on the same page and moving in the right direction and kind of talking the same language. And then each department is responsible for their own stream. So we're looking at the 5 most important processes first, and we're trying to get those in, get those tested, get those perfected. So each department was coined with trying to pick their top 5, and they're, we've got somebody who is what we call a process czar. Duke came up with that creative name, and
You're welcome.
that person is they're not necessarily in charge of inputting each workflow, but they're in charge of making sure that each workflow gets inputted, so they can delegate it to whoever they want. Obviously, we've got some people on our staff that are experts in different departments or different processes, so it makes sense to kind of pass those on to those folks. So we always look to try to get a champion for each one of these projects, and in this case, because it was so vast and it had all our departments in it, we had to get 5 different champions. And so some are working better than others at it. Some are responsible for more than others, and some people aren't delegating it well. So I actually got to jam down some people's throats here over the next 24 hours to make sure that it's really, it's the people that don't delegate it that don't get it done as quickly.
Yeah.
And even if you encourage them to say, hey, you can let go, it's okay if somebody does it. It's okay if somebody does it differently than you do.
Mm-hmm.
We can correct it.
Something about perfect is the enemy of great or good enough or what, you know what I mean? Like with that kind of stuff, you're trying to get a lot of processes created and or put into a system. You got to be happy with 80-90% okay to get it done.
Yeah. Which is tough because we're all perfectionists at Dodson Property Management.
Vince has already talked, obviously, but he works with Mind, which is a property management company based in Oakland, and is in a number of markets, including 2 of my markets. By the way, for transparency's sake, I got a Slack message yesterday that was this desperate, the world is on fire, from one of my team leaders. I'm not going to tell you which market it is. That just told me that we lost 5 out of 9 contracts to Mind. And I was like, man, that sucks. So just know we're coming back. Better. We're coming back. I'm in my mind, I'm building up Vince like Michael Jordan would any of his any of his foes. So right now, like, I'm just kind of stewing over Vince. Vince,
Yeah,
what's on your mind? What's keeping you up at night? Obviously, other than kicking my tail.
I was gonna say, not any of your markets.
It's all those markets are good. He's worried about the ones I'm not in, that he can't easily land deals.
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of business for all of us, right?
There's no doubt.
Yeah.
Except that one city.
Except those. I mean, I would have loved to have those 5. I mean, my kids got to eat, Vince.
So humble.
You're overestimating the likelihood that you would have wanted those. Maybe they're ones that you wouldn't have wanted.
Well, what's funny is, this is pretty typical, is the first message was, we're losing 50% of our deals to Mind. 50% of our deals. So my next question was, explain 50%. And of course, 5 out of 9, he could have gone as high as almost 60%, 5 out of 9. So, then you got to understand, well, is this a systemic problem that we're losing all these people to Mind?
Our pricing is pretty similar too, isn't it? In those markets,
I can neither confirm or deny that. I just basically copied your landing page and then put GK houses everywhere it says Mind.
Good.
All right, Vince, what's keeping you up at night?
Just challenges that we're facing. I mean, I think it's a challenge, but we're on top of it. Is just keeping up with all of the different local municipalities and different, eviction moratoriums, different stay-at-home orders. When are we going to open up our office? What does that look like? I think we're fortunate that we have a pretty, robust team, that we have our own task force that's on this, and it's their job to keep up on all of this for both our owners and our residents, and just, make sure that we're staying up to date. But it's just changing so fast. Like, we were very close to opening up our office in Oakland, and now it's obviously not safe to open up we're not comfortable opening up that office in Oakland for other reasons aside from COVID. So we're this mental kind of back and forth of, let's open it up. Do we make it accessible to everyone? What does that look like? And it, similar issues that I'm sure you guys are all faced with, and every business is faced with now, is what does the new environment look like when we open back up? And when we open back up, the moratoriums in place, or any of the rules and regulations in place, it's different by each region. And the challenge of when you grow fast, like Matthew, you're in multiple markets, like, it's different in every market. It's not a one playbook for every market. So we have to have the appropriate infrastructure set up in our systems, and also the training for our local folks to execute on that, because it has pretty major implications to our organization. So again, we're on top of it, but it's definitely something that I think if you don't have the appropriate resources focused on this stuff, it could really hurt your business.
So this is an issue I'm dealing with, is just around training. I would love to know how Mind thinks about training new team members when they come on board. Do y'all have some sort of set process for taking people through both their role and also understanding mind as a whole?
Yeah, we have our we call it our talent and culture team. So they're, human resources team, HR, but it's talent and culture in our company.
How many people? Just in general.
So that is comprised of, I believe, 5 right now. So we have a VP of talent and culture, and she not only handles like onboarding of new employees, but making sure culture internally is, she deals with all the initiatives about internal culture. But then separate from her, so that's our talent and culture team. So we have an onboarding process from 0 to 90 days. We set them up with a buddy internally, like a veteran of the company that's in a different department that could be a shoulder that they could lean on. And so that's kind of the 0 to 90 day just standard playbook. But then we have a training department. It's like an education department that trains these folks on their individual specific responsibilities.
And how big is the training department?
I don't know what it's at right now. I think it's just 2 folks.
But their whole job is basically to take somebody from 0 to 90 days. And then, well, I shouldn't have said that. How long does it take you to train somebody to run a position?
I honestly, it's dependent on the department. Like our sales folks are up and running in 30 days usually. Operations.
Yeah, because salespeople, they don't care. They can just sell anything. They're like, just fill in the blank of my normal sales.
I think, it's all about, like, as we mature as a company, we're still, fairly young. We're cultivating more of a playbook. Like the more you could templatize and have a playbook, we have trainings online, videos, the more that as we evolve, we're building this robust library. I think a challenge in that, though, that, I don't know if you all face as much, but it's training somebody on an evolving technology, right? Like Appfolio and Propertyware, I don't know how much they actually change their systems and processes, but I could tell you, we have new product releases every week, right? And to keep up with that, like I could show you the demo that we showed you guys a month ago is actually kind of irrelevant right now. It's evolved. It's became so much more polished since then. So to keep not only the new people trained, but the existing staff trained is a challenge that, we do face. And it's really dependent. It's on the department lead to tap into the resources that we have.
I would think that's probably the same for all of us. I mean, it's not just the technology, it's processes. I think that's something that we all have in common. And why we're doing the mastermind stuff and all that is we're constantly trying to find a better way to do something. And just as you build out that workflow in Appfolio Plus, we're going to change it probably, right? Like, so I think that's going to be a challenge we all have. And I'm sure a lot of people in the industry do.
Yeah.
And another problem we have, I think everybody has, is that like at a big corporation, you have a corporate trainers, big HR staff, and most small businesses don't have that, right? You don't even have somebody with the capacity to like train someone for 3 hours in a day because they're busy, right? And so that's a challenge that all of us have to face, and that maybe with scale that gets easier, maybe it doesn't, but it probably does.
I think that's where building up a library, like even at scale, like, and we have resources right now, we're trying to build as much information that they can access at their own leisure, and that does take a person, but you could also just hire someone to come in for a month and like do some basic trainings and recordings, and then it's on that staff member to complete that in a certain amount of time. I don't know if you guys already do that or not.
We do some, and the problem is if you rely on just that, I'll walk by and I'll see like there's like a 2 desks where all the new multifamily folks always are. They're always watching videos and they're always falling asleep because no one's there to be with them, and so they're just like nodding off. And I'm like, I'm walking by like waving at them. But yeah, I think that's got to be part of it, is automated, videos, modules, whatever. But like I always feel like there needs to be a little more human element that's like taking them along, keeping them on track.
One thing that we've gotten positive feedback on, and is, so Doug, every month he'll do an onboarding with any new employees, and it's, talking about the mission and the culture, and like he really opens it up to have that one-on-one connection. And I think people have really appreciated that, because they, when they're in the interview process, they get some of that, but to hear it reemphasized I think he does like a 90-minute meeting every month with all the new staff.
If you think about it too, this is kind of a limiter, since we're in the service business, on our growth. I mean, our ability to find excellent people, train excellent people, and then keep them up to date on processes and grow from a personal standpoint. I mean, that's going to keep our businesses from growing. I mean, I know Vince's group is writing their own software, and obviously the rest of us use Appfolio, and they're obviously continuing to update their software, but we can only take this business so far. We still have to train people, and if we don't train them, then we're dropping balls and clients are firing us. So it really is solving this problem is truly a limiter on our growth. Duke, obviously you're with Dodson Property Management, since your last name's Dodson.
I am. Yeah, I mean, I take the generic answer. I think the difficult thing we're dealing with now, because of the times, not only do we have COVID to deal with now because of the George Floyd incident and civil unrest and protests, it's created a situation. I think the most difficult part of the whole thing is messaging. We have like the physical difficulties of, we've had stores looted and buildings damaged, and fearing for our tenant safety and our employee safety and all that. That's part of it. But I think the messaging part is, how do we get this messaging right? Because I think it's so important right now. If you haven't noticed, we're 5 white dudes on this, and we're trying to lead a diverse staff that we kind of know how they feel. We don't really know how they feel. And so, Tim does a good job at our shop of keeping me informed socially, what I need to be aware of, what articles I need to read, what things I shouldn't say, right? And because you can obviously mean well, but you could say something harmful to your team if you're not fully kind of educated up to the minute of what news is out there. And so, it was just so funny on LinkedIn, a local business leader who I respect, African-American guy about my age, he posted, hey, if people like me, like idiot white people like me, want someone to talk to about how to message, your staff, or what things to think about, or just some advice, give me a call. So I did. And so he was very helpful, just opened some doors in my mind. And so, we don't.
Well, I would be interested in what he said.
Yeah, I mean, I'll break it down it was a long talk we had, but some of the advice you could probably anticipate, which is to be authentic, be yourself, be open, encourage dialogue. But he just stressed, like, letting our team know of all races and genders and age and sexual orientations, let all of our people know that we're here to listen. If you want a group meeting about this topic, we'll set it up. If you want a one-on-one chat with me or with Brian or CO or department head, we'll set it up. If you want a group of 3, normally we'd say let's go to lunch, but maybe a Zoom session. Just letting everyone know that we're there to listen. We're there to try to understand and try to do what we can to make it better. We're not going to get it right. We're not going to get 100% right, but we can certainly try. That was the main takeaways from the talk.
And how have you done that? I mean, have you sent out like a message to everybody?
Yeah. So we use Workplace internally to communicate. It's like an internal Facebook. We posted something there, like a written statement. We sent a video to our team, our clients, and our tenants, the same video kind of for everybody. Fairly vague, but also kind of explain, speaking to our values. And because all this topic here, and a lot of topics as business leaders, you always face, I don't want to get into a political discussion, right? Because in a political discussion, people on both sides, and no matter what you say, can be interpreted. It can be offensive. You could alienate, 50% of your team or your client base or your tenant base. It's politics, right? But in this situation, I think it's not just politics. It's like there's some things during this that are just wrong, right? In our opinion, right? Per our values. And so, like, where do you draw that line to, okay, we're against this, we're not going to talk about those things, right? Because it's a slippery slope. And so those are the things I went over with the guy. His name is Aaron Montgomery. He started a company called Car Lots here in Richmond. So that was one. Another thing I asked him about was like censorship, right? Meaning, like, on Workplace, our employees can just post whatever they want. They can post pictures, comments, and as you can imagine, with a growing staff, like, something that somebody says could be very offensive, could start an internal, hornet's nest if you're not careful.
Like
It's
somebody says something about a presidential either candidate or the current president, and then all of a sudden somebody on the other side gets frustrated, and then all of a sudden it reduces into a food fight.
Yeah, and then so I asked him, like, in this situation, I gave him a real life example of something that somebody posts and something somebody might post, right? You can anticipate some of these posts coming. Like, for example, your opinion on the protests, right? Some group might say we need to do more of it. There's some that say you're putting law enforcement in danger. You should say, there's arguments to be made. It's like, would you censor that, or would you let it go, or would you participate in it? And his advice was not to censor it, but to suggest, hey, that's an interesting perspective. Here's another perspective. What do you think about it? Encourage dialogue. And I think that's good advice, but that you can imagine some things going kind of crazy there too.
Yeah. Wow.
I think some of the times we forget in some of these discussions, because the loudest voice always grabs our attention, is that, like Duke said, there are some things in this situation where it's very clearly right and wrong, right? Very clearly right and wrong. But everything else, the word Duke just uses perspectives. Like, there's a ton of nuance to all these situations, and there's a lot of perspectives. And again, some people are very clearly just being assholes, and some people are very clearly just being ignorant. But it is a lot of perspectives, and trying to at least get people to, you're not going to change people's mind that often this day and age, but just making people realize that they're not right, and that's just their perspective and what they're living, I think is an important piece of that part of it. I thought Duke did a really good job with our video that we sent out. In fact, it was good enough to send out to employees, tenants, clients, and we got really, really good feedback on it. So again, because it was authentic as well. People can smell bullshit from a mile away. So I thought that authenticity piece of it is really good. If you are gonna send out any messaging, it's got to be authentic, and people have to be able to tell that you mean it.
Yeah, I sent out a LinkedIn message Sunday night, or posted a LinkedIn message, and man, I spent forever, deleting, adding, subtracting, making sure every word was, it was, because it was really important to me. And I was really, honestly, probably, I will post a LinkedIn message and not think twice about it. And this was probably the scariest LinkedIn message, because the last thing I want to do is also miscommunicate how I feel about this. And so it's been seen by 2,000 people already, and has, whatever the different forms of likes are, is up to 50, which I know is not a lot. But I wanted to make sure that my team saw where I stood on it. And I'm with you guys. I think this is very important, but also making sure that you're not miscommunicating, and making sure that people know your heart. I mean, the team members on my team know my heart, because they know that I'm in it for them. I want them to do well, but you also don't want people to, misuse how the wording you used, or if you used the wrong thing because you honestly didn't understand. So it's a tough time as a leader to be navigating both the COVID stuff and this. Wow. I mean, you want to talk about having to be on your toes as a leader.
You bring up a good point. You mentioned, Mike, did I just cut you off? Go ahead, man.
Oh, good.
But you mentioned how many likes you got. And as leaders, like, I don't know about you guys, Mike, I know you're on all of your employees' Facebooks, right? Like, I'm Facebook friends with a lot of people, and how far the thought process, you hit that like button on your employee's post, how far they probably take that's saying something, whether you want to, whether
you're making little social commentaries each time you like something, and your people see, they can see it. Sure.
Yeah. I ended up posting the Blackout Tuesday thing yesterday, with just, the hashtag love you, just to say, if, not anything about that Blackout Tuesday, but just, hey, I'm supportive and love everybody, trying to, and the amount of current employees or former employees that like that was a ton. So, I mean, every little thing, whether you're posting or you're liking or you're doing anything, that just kind of opened my eyes when you said that, Matt, counting your likes and remembering that I do that too. It's important.
Jimmy, did you just say you love everybody?
I do love everybody
I
except.
thought you didn't like anybody,
I don't-
but you
I mean,
don't like us, but you love all of us.
Seriously conflicted.
He is so confused. He's
Well,
two
you know
different
what?
peoples in that body.
I know Tim so well that I know exactly what he means, but he loves everybody and he hates everybody. I know exactly what he means by that.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, maybe if you guys just listen to my perspectives a little more, you would understand. Like Duke. Thank you, Duke. I appreciate that.
Tim, actually, what I meant though, all perspectives are welcome, but sometimes your perspectives are wrong. But I still love you.
Well, I think,
Mine can be wrong every now and then.
but never in doubt. You might be wrong, but you're never in doubt.
I'll tell you what, I was having a conversation last night because I mean they're protesting
Right now.
4 blocks from my house right now. They walked by my house earlier, a block from my house. Like we hear it. There's sirens. There's choppers. So like we were outside, and having a conversation about this. And I honestly can't, it's hard to put a finger on how I feel. Again, clearly the George Floyd thing, that's wrong. Clearly police brutality against anybody, but especially, minorities and people that they've targeted over the years is wrong. And, that's clear. But, the protests, I'm scared a little bit for our community. Is it doing a good? Is it going to do what needs to change? Like, or is it putting police or the protester? Like, there's just so many nuances to this thing. And I love the word nuance, but in this situation, I hate it because I can't figure out how I feel about the whole protest thing and the looting. There's very, well, never mind. I was going to get a little bit political there, but there's clearly different factions in there causing different things. And you can feel certain ways about each one of them.
Well, it's confusing the message, right? I mean, that's the whole point, is that messages are getting confused. And I mean, I sent y'all a message yesterday, and this was, somebody had forwarded me a screenshot of a Facebook message that they were going to protest right across the street from my office. Like literally, I watched them collect, and it was basically saying, we're going to, it had the gist of it was going to be potentially violent. And I'm thinking, man, I support what y'all are protesting, but my house, but my office here still could be damaged. Like that to me is what's so hard about this whole thing.
Sure.
Exactly.
The other thing, though, I think it makes it the point, just kind of elevate this out of just kind of the current issues, is as leaders, you are constantly on stage, right? Like you talked about what you like people are watching. What you post, people are watching, and so you're constantly having, and really this kind of gets back to integrity, is like us being who we are and being authentic makes that a whole lot easier if you think about it. Like if I'm one person to you and my team, and then I'm another person at home and I'm another person around my friends, I mean, that gets pretty confusing. That's one of the things I like about you guys, is y'all are very authentic guys. And, one time Mike, and I know I cussed earlier in this, but I was making the point, but Mike asked me if we may have said this on this, but you asked me if I minded if you cussed, right? Because I don't typically cuss. And Mike, we were sitting in a car, and he's like, do you care if I cuss? You remember this conversation?
Yeah, I remember. You were driving me to the airport.
I wish I was there for this.
So it was, I was looking for Matthew's professional opinion on cussing. And I think I had just listened to Duke's book, Hard Thing About Hard Things, the Ben Horrowitz book. But
where he says he doesn't trust you if you don't cuss.
Yeah, so I was just wondering your thoughts. There was probably zero chance I was going to stop cussing, but I wanted to know whether you, in your kind of, straight-laced, never cuss kind of the good guy, what you thought about it and what your true opinion was. And you said, I think if I remember correctly, you said, yeah, it's you, just be you. It's authentic. You need to be authentic. And I think you guys have all hit on that. And I think now more than ever, our culture and our society today really embraces that authenticity. I think, the younger generation thrives off it and needs it. And I think everybody kind of ignored my comment about the media yesterday when I said that but like part of what is making this so hard to navigate is the media and the reporting on both sides is just such garbage. I mean, it is just so bad that you just don't know what is actually, like, the people that are reporting the news. Like, how many people look at Twitter now for actual news, because the news media is slanting everything. You know what I mean? So you're going off of like people's opinions, and it's just crazy to me. So what really, I'd love to hear your guys' opinions on that, if you can speak to it. If you don't want to, if it's too like controversial, feel free. But I also wanted to just mention that the other thing that really just kind of gave me perspective, and I didn't comment on it at the time, but I watched pretty much the whole friggin' video, was the video that Vince had posted, because the rioting was literally going on outside his door. And I don't know, Vince, if you want to talk about that, or if you feel comfortable talking about it, but it had to be a crazy feeling that night.
Yeah, I think that's, you're right about the media situation, because it's like, when you're in it, which I think we all are in it now, I think you get stuck in your own bubble. You think, you look at the news and you're like, okay, it's only going on in big cities. It's going on everywhere. And I think, something that I'm trying to adopt is just having more empathy for everyone. Everyone's in a different situation. Everyone's experiencing this differently. Everyone has different opinions. Some, I may strongly agree with, some I may not agree with, but just being more empathetic to, like, we're not only is this this is way bigger than George Floyd and, what this specific incident is. This is a big issue. We're coming out of, we've all been locked in place for 2 months, scared for our health. 30 million people are unemployed. Like, there is so much more here that I think it's easy to get wrapped up in the current situation. And so I had this really, and I don't know if it's the parental wires in me, but I felt really, to be completely candid with you, kind of frightened this weekend. Like, when I'm looking out the window, you see the choppers, you like, I was watching a live stream of the looting happening, like 5 minutes away. I have a pregnant wife and a 2-year-old here, and there's tweets talking about how they're going to start looting neighborhoods, and you live in a big city, and you're faced with this. My heart was so heavy for George Floyd, and just like I'm so for making the appropriate change, but then it gets clouded with all of this other stuff, right? Then I'm in like defense mode. And I text you guys, and I later realized I was not being empathetic to all of your situations, right? I was sitting here like texting you how I was like really concerned about the family, and I didn't even ask you guys how you were doing. And then I realized that I was like, shit, I should ask them how they were doing, right? Because we're all affected on different levels of the spectrum, and the media fuels the toxicity either way, So I don't know if that answered your question, Mike, but
No, it's great, man. I mean, I could feel the emotion in your text, and I know you worry about us all the time. You always ask us, so you're the last person I feel like is inconsiderate about people's feelings in this group, the least.
Would agree 1,000% with that. Yeah.
Well, and what was interesting, I was talking to Doug about this yesterday. It's been hard to talk to friends and family sometimes about this too, because it's so easy to get this conversation down a direction that you may not agree with, right? And like, it's really weird when you feel like the best person to talk to is a 2-year-old who doesn't have any bias. Like, I was walking with Avia on Sunday, talking to her about this shit. I was like talking to her about my feelings. I got emotional. She saw a tear in my eye. All of a sudden, she got like more interested in what I was saying. And what it made me realize is like, we need, it starts in the home. And Doug talked about this yesterday. Like, you want to make major change, and sometimes you feel like you can't make the impact that you need. But where it really starts is internally, and then in your home, right? Like, you have to teach your children, you have to teach them about the history and what is wrong with things and what they need to know, your family values, right? And I think it's just like they're going to be exposed to the news. And do you think the news is going to get any better over the next? Like, I'm a huge Joe Rogan fan, as you guys all know, and I think the reason for that is I think Joe Rogan does a pretty damn good job of having, you know, to some extent, like an unbiased conversation for 3 hours on his podcast, right? And he's, you know, I think we need more mediums like that, and hopefully we see that. I don't know how long CNN and Fox News is going to stay around. I don't know what their financial situation is, but I could tell you right now that I don't like either of those mediums for my media.
You know, I'm so glad you said that, because I wanted to tie it to this group. I mean, one of the things I love about this group is, yeah, we're 5 white dudes. So, I mean, if you're listening to this, note that. But there is a ton of diversity in thought and beliefs and feelings. And I mean, I think Tim and I politically are on probably 2 ends of the spectrum, but I know Tim's heart. And what's so awesome is I can, what were you saying, Timmy?
I said, you think we might be on?
But what's so great about it is I know he's a good guy. I know his heart. And so he does make me think about different perspectives. And I think that's probably, if we want to bring all this back to business, if all of us thought the exact same way, whether we all consistently watch CNN or all consistently watch Fox News or all if there was not diversity of thought, there would be no need for this group, because we just sit around and believe each other's stories. And so, you know, one of the great things about great friends and people that are out for your success is, like, I'm out for them and you're out for me. And we can also, like, disagree, but it doesn't even, like, it never comes up. Like, we never have an emotional disagreement about anything that I can recall. And what an awesome...
When Tim drinks too much, we get a little emotional, but other than that,
he does.
Right.
He gets emotional, but I don't.
Dude,
I was just gonna say, Tim's about the only one that gets emotional occasionally, but it's almost always about passion about politics, and all of us are just like, yeah. Okay.
But there's nobody like, I never was one of those people that said, "Oh, I love you," and then Tim is one of those guys that's like, "I love you." So to me, he's even softened somebody like me that never would have said something like that to a bunch of you guys. And, you know, look, I learned something. And so that's the whole thing, is like, that's the appropriate way to go through life, is people challenging the way you think and making sure that you think the things that you think, and also being willing to tell you when they think you're wrong.
Sure.
I agree with that.
Tim has told me I'm wrong a lot. Tim has probably told me I'm wrong more than any other human in the entire world. But there's always some truth in it. Even if I don't always agree with him, I'll look back on it like, yeah, I get what he was saying, and I've made changes. I've made changes in my thinking, and because of Tim challenging me. So I certainly appreciate it.
I would say the same about all of you guys. I mean, I've never been more angry than when Duke tells me I'm wrong, or he just yells at me about my opinion or something like that. But in retrospect, even just now, you know, you guys saying I get too emotional. Well, maybe I do. Maybe I do.
I want you to think about that a lot.
No, we actually want you
to.
to. Yeah, we like that. If you didn't do that, then it wouldn't be you. And if Mikey didn't cuss, it wouldn't be him.
I was gonna say I was glad Mike at least asked. I just say fuck a lot.
Yeah, I think Mike asked one time if you're okay with cursing. I think I asked Matthew one time, are you okay with Tim's dark humor? I was like, do you even know how to take that? Like, do you know how to interpret it?
I will say, I'm glad I've got a few close friends that at least when I say what I want to say, you guys kind of get it a little bit.
I know there's different iMessage chains that I'm not on, and I'm actually glad that I'm not on those.
There are? Vince, you're going to say something that sounded important, way more important than this.
No, it was actually like commending you, Duke, for like one thing. We had a call with one of our advisors yesterday, and he was talking about tapping into experts, and like, we're not experts in this. Like you just said, we're, you know, as leaders, you guys are all running your organizations, never ran your organization through a pandemic, you know. Personally, like, you haven't experienced the global racism that is being protested right now, right? You're not experts in this field. Tapping into people who really truly understand like the knowledge base, right? As if you'd hope that they tap into us for property management. And I think
Right.
he was so Doug, his wife is a criminal justice attorney. She spent her whole career doing nonprofit work for this exact thing. I just sent you guys an article that she wrote yesterday. Like, she fundamentally has spent her whole career. I think she's a Stanford lawyer. Like, and her whole mission has been, how do we make the criminal justice system better, right? And so, like, Doug opened up yesterday, and his kickoff to the team, and after talking to the advisor, it's like, you have to be sensitive to how you communicate to your teams, but you also have to be authentic, as you guys said, and also just empathetic, and tap into other wealths of knowledge to give. Like, you can't talk like you're an expert. I've seen some leaders over the past couple weeks that I'm just like, I'm thankful I don't work for them, first of all. And it just shows you how you don't want to be when you're leading. Like, it's easy to let your emotions lead, but you shouldn't do that, right? And they're leading with just emotion, and they don't understand how many eyes are looking up to them,
Yeah.
So I think that was great that you tapped into that resource, Duke.
Sure. Yeah.
I'd like to see that video you guys sent, if you wouldn't mind sharing it.
Yeah. Sure.
So I think this is a good place to wrap it up. I would love to, one last question, quick answer, 1 minute or less. I'd love to know what books you're reading right now.
Can I skip this one since I started the podcast?
Yes, you can skip it.
Actually,
go ahead,
I
Mikey.
do want to say, Matthew, you're like, Ray Dalio is your man, right? He's like your,
Oh yeah.
Did you see? Someone just forwarded me something. He's like releasing a chapter a week of his new book. Did you see that?
No, I didn't.
It's insane.
Sounds like it might be a good gift for Matthew, though.
But I'm leaving right after this to go sit at his doorstep and see if I can get the first copy of each one.
I read the summary of it that I could send you, and you could maybe post it in the show notes. He was talking about his stream of consciousness thoughts about like what's going on right now, and it is pretty powerful. You guys should read it.
Yeah, he's a pretty smart guy. Mikey, you had a book.
Yeah, we're reading a couple books at Atrium. We're going back through Shoe Dog, Phil Knight's story with our A team, which is our accounting, admin, animal control, which is the name for HR. That's our A team department. They love it. Some of the comments have been, it's the best book they've ever read. It's one of the best books I know we've commented on that one before. So.
Pay me show first. That's where I am listening to it. I ran an hour today and listened to about an hour of it.
Yeah, pay me show first. Yeah, it's a good one. And we were also we started a beginning investor course. We have a lot of people at our company that really want to buy a property. Or partner in a property, and how do you do that? So Adam's been leading a beginning investor course. So we just picked up Rich Dad Poor Dad, and we're reading that. We're through chapter 2 as a course. It's kind of fun. I'm really excited. The ultimate goal, we're going to buy a deal together at the end of it.
So
I think that was the first book Duke handed me when I came to work for him.
Great.
7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and that one.
I think that is right.
So Mikey, Roofstock also has a course that you can tap into that is kind of for beginners. And I don't know, I know there's a paid portion and part of it's free. But I did a podcast with them recently on that course. And so that might be something else, another resource y'all can tap into on the buying your first property.
Yep.
All right, Tim, what are you reading?
All right, so I needed to finish 2 books from a while ago that I never finished. So one was Leaders Eat Last, Simon Sinek. So I actually ran today for the first time in 2.5 weeks because my bum knee and bum foot knee still wasn't great. But so listening to books, trying to take y'all's advice there. And then also, just for those of you romantics out there, I'm also finishing up As You Wish. The Princess Bride story, Carrie Elwes, the guy who played the main character there. Listening to that, a lot of great stories about Andre the Giant in that book. Actually, really great stories about Andre the Giant.
That's awesome.
Hey, we don't always have to read business books, guys. Read something
love
for
it.
just like pleasure,
Good.
like enjoy
My
your
wife's favorite movie.
life.
Hey,
And
also Tim, I hate to call you out, but your run merited 0.0 strain today.
you know what? So the whoop was not charged, and I had it plugged in for about an hour, and then I grabbed it. I was like ready to run. I did my stretching and all that, which is a very long routine now that my lower body's all screwed up. Grabbed the whoop off the charger, and I'm like, there's no charge to it. So it's finally charged up. I know I've still only got a 4 strain.
Do you guys know, I've been curious, if it's dead and you wear it, it doesn't pick up
Does
anything.
nothing.
Right?
Does
No?
nothing. No.
Can't let it die.
Cannot let it die, which I did. I made the mistake of doing that yesterday. I was up late watching CNN. Vince, sorry. I will say there are people at their desks, but there are people in the field last night in New York did a really good job of being unbiased. When they said they didn't know what was going on, they just said that. They just covered it. So
Yeah, and I think one thing to also mention on that too is like both sides. The media people, you got to give them some credit. They're in the.
oh yeah.
It's been crazy.
They're getting shot with rubber bullets. I don't know if you saw one of the, and maybe it was NBC reporter. She lost an eye.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
like you got to give it to them.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm done.
All right, Duke.
So you got me on Tim Ferris podcast. So I listened to the Tim Ferris interview of Ben Horrowitz. He recommended 3 books. I bought them all. I'll just tell you about one of them. One of them I haven't read it yet. It's coming, called The Black Jacobins, and it's like about the guy who led the Haitian Revolution. And Ben Horowitz says he's the greatest influencer of culture in an organization he's ever seen. So how about that teaser?
Wow. Yeah. Love Tim Ferris. He's kind of like a Joe Rogan, a great interviewer of people and very objective, like has a huge diverse group of people. I actually listened to Tim Ferris also today, his interview with Madeleine Albright, who, politically I don't necessarily, agree with, but I need to listen to her and listen to her thoughts and really, really interesting stuff. So I'm going to finish it off. I'm reading Peter Drucker's The Effective Executive. I'm telling you guys, one of the things Tim Ferris actually says is to read books that are that have withstood the test of time.
Mm-hmm.
And this is one. Peter Drucker, I don't think still alive, but he wrote this book many, many years ago, and man, it is just gold. It's basically 5 principles for being a leader. And I mean, it just shows you that the principles back in 1960 when he wrote this have not changed. He talks about, focusing on one task at a time versus trying to do too many things. And they probably even apply more today than they did back then. So
yeah,
that's it. Like us wherever you listen to your podcast. We're hopefully going to drop these podcasts at some point. But appreciate y'all listening. Appreciate you guys.
peace.
Love you guys.
Yeah.
I love all you
Loves you.
crazy people.